Title: My daughter blamed me for her failure until I found the diary she wrote about planning revenge. When I first opened the little blue notebook under her bed, I thought it was just a school journal. But as my eyes ran over the words, my name, written again and again, the ink pressed hard into the page, I felt something inside me collapse. It wasn't a diary. It was a confession, a plan, and it was written by my daughter. If you've ever raised a teenage girl, you'll understand that silence can be louder than shouting. For months, my daughter, Clara, barely looked at me. She moved around the house like a shadow, present but unreachable. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers withdraw. They roll their eyes, slam doors, and stop saying goodnight. I'd read enough parenting books to know the script. But there was something sharper in Clara's silence, a kind of contempt. She used to crawl into my bed on stormy nights and ask about my patients, what I did at the hospital, who I helped that day. She wanted to be a doctor once, like me. Now, when I came home late, she'd glance at the clock and mutter, "Of course." When I asked about her homework, she'd shrug. "What do you care? You're never here anyway." The words stung more than I wanted to admit, because they were true in a way. I hadn't been there, at least not enough. When her father left 3 years ago, I threw myself into work. It was easier to fix broken bodies than to face my own broken family. And somewhere in those long hospital nights, I missed the moment my daughter stopped seeing me as her mother and started seeing me as her enemy. Our house had grown quiet, except for the sound of the refrigerator humming at night and the faint music coming from her room. We used to eat dinner together at the kitchen island, but now she'd take her plate upstairs before I even sat down. I'd knock softly on her door sometimes. "Clara, can we talk?" A pause, then her muffled voice, flat as a wall. "I'm busy." I told myself it was just a phase, that if I stayed patient, she'd come back around. But there's a kind of distance between mother and daughter that feels like standing on opposite sides of glass. You can see each other clearly, but no sound, no warmth passes through. One night I came home past 10 o'clock. The hospital corridors had been full of grief and urgency, car accidents, feverish children, the kind of night that leaves you hollowed out. When I opened the front door, the house smelled faintly of burnt popcorn. Clara was asleep on the couch, the TV flickering low. Her phone rested on the coffee table, buzzing with messages. I saw a name flash across the screen, Eli. I'd never heard that name before. I hesitated, tempted to look, but I didn't. Trust, I reminded myself. If I started snooping, I'd lose what little ground I had left. I turned off the TV, draped a blanket over her shoulders, and watched her for a long time. The soft crease between her brows, the faint tear tracks that glistened under the blue TV light. Whatever was happening in her world, I wasn't part of it. The next morning, she left early, skipping breakfast. I found her cereal bowl still on the counter, milk congealed, spoon half submerged. A note was stuck under the sugar jar. It read, in her sharp handwriting, "Don't wait up tonight. Staying over at Lily's." Lily, her best friend, lived 3 streets away. It was believable. Still, something in my chest tightened. That night, when I called Lily's mother just to check in, she hesitated. "Oh, Clara? I thought she was home with you tonight." The silence between us lasted a beat too long. I thanked her quietly, hung up, and sat at the kitchen table until the refrigerator's hum filled the room again. Clara came home past midnight, her hair tousled, smelling faintly of smoke and cheap perfume. I wanted to ask where she had been, but I caught the defiance in her eyes, the way she clenched her jaw, the way her shoulders squared, and I stopped myself. Instead, I said softly, "I'm glad you're safe." She rolled her eyes. "Don't pretend you care, Mom. You only notice me when I mess up." Then she disappeared upstairs, her door slamming shut behind her. In the days that followed, I tried to reach her in small ways. Her favorite breakfast, a text saying "love you," an offer to help with her college essay. Each attempt bounced off her like a pebble hitting glass. Then one Saturday morning, I was cleaning her room. She was at a weekend study group. At least that's what she told me. Her bed was unmade, clothes everywhere. I wasn't looking for anything. I just needed to feel useful again, like I could still take care of her somehow. When I bent down to pick up a sweatshirt, my hand brushed something under the bed, a notebook, spiral bound with a blue cover and a faint coffee stain on the edge. At first, I smiled. A diary. Maybe she was finally writing again. I used to buy her journals when she was little, telling her stories heal the heart. But the moment I flipped it open, I knew this wasn't the kind of story I wanted to read. The first entry was dated 3 months ago. She thinks working late makes her a hero. She doesn't even know what I've done. I can't wait until she sees what it feels like to lose something she loves. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I turned the page. "Eli says he'll help me. We'll take the money from her account before she even notices. I already know her password. She uses my birthday. Funny, right?" My breath caught. Another entry, weeks later. "She'll finally pay for what she did, for ruining my life. I don't care if she hates me after. I already hate her." I dropped the notebook. My hands were shaking so badly it hit the floor with a dull thud. There were pages, dozens of them, filled with anger, plans, resentment. In the margins, she'd scribbled cruel little notes. "She deserves it. I'll make her proud by destroying her." The words blurred before my eyes. My daughter, the same girl whose tiny fingers once clutched my white coat, who used to fall asleep to the sound of my voice, wanted to hurt me, and she'd planned it. I sat there for what felt like hours, the blue notebook heavy in my lap. I wanted to believe it was a joke, teenage exaggeration, a way to vent, but the handwriting was steady, the tone deliberate. This wasn't teenage angst. It was intent. I stared at the last line she wrote. "Next Friday. She'll be at work. I'll be gone." Next Friday. That was 5 days away. I looked around her room, at the open window, the backpack in the corner, the half-packed suitcase under her desk. My knees went weak. Whatever pain she was carrying had twisted into something darker, something I hadn't seen coming. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own daughter. I remember sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at that open diary, my breath shallow, my mind racing through every moment I might have missed. Was it when I forgot her piano recital? When I worked through her 16th birthday? Or was it something deeper, something I couldn't undo with late apologies and warm breakfasts? I closed the diary carefully, almost tenderly, as if afraid the words might spill out and stain the air. For a long time, I just sat there, trying to make sense of it all. The rational part of me, the doctor, wanted to analyze, to diagnose, to fix. But the mother in me just felt shattered. Finally, I locked the diary in my desk drawer.
I told myself I'd confront her calmly after I knew more. But that night, sleep refused to come. I lay awake listening to her footsteps in the hallway, wondering if she already suspected that I'd read it. Over the next few days, I became a quiet observer in my own home. I noticed things I hadn't before. The way she flinched when I said her name, the way her phone never left her hand, the way she looked at me, not with the confusion of a teenager, but with a kind of cold satisfaction, like she was holding a secret. Wednesday evening, I pretended to work in my office, but really I was watching the bank alerts on my phone. At 6:43 p.m., I saw a notification. New device login, online banking account. My chest tightened. I knew it was her. I could almost see her in her room typing in my password, the one that matched her birthday. The irony burned. I took a deep breath and changed it immediately. Then I sat in silence, staring at the computer screen, feeling the weight of something irreversible between us. At dinner, she came down late. Her hair was tied up, her expression unreadable. "Long day?" I asked, trying to sound normal. She shrugged, spooning rice onto her plate. "You could say that," she murmured, not looking at me. I smiled faintly. "I do. Maybe we could talk after dinner. I feel like we haven't—" "Why bother? You always have work anyway." The words landed like a slap, but her voice was calm, deliberate, almost practiced. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't angry anymore. She was ready. The next morning, I checked her school attendance. She hadn't shown up. When I called the front desk, they said she hadn't been to first or second period either. My pulse spiked. I called her phone, no answer. I called Lily's mother again, still no luck. Then I remembered the diary. The last entry, Friday. "She'll be at work. I'll be gone." But it was Thursday. Was she planning something early? I drove around the neighborhood, scanning every corner, every cafe she used to visit. I stopped by the park near the old bridge, the one she and her friends loved in middle school. That's where I saw her. She was sitting on a bench under the oak tree, her backpack beside her, phone pressed to her ear. Her face was pale, serious. And next to her, a boy I didn't recognize. Tall, messy hair, a leather jacket too big for him. Eli. I parked across the street and watched them for a moment. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. They were arguing. His hands gestured sharply, hers clenched in fists. Then, suddenly, she started crying. He stood up, turned away, and walked off toward the main road. For a moment, she just sat there, shoulders shaking. That was the moment I stepped out of the car. "Clara," I said softly. Her head snapped up. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with fury. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "I should ask you the same." I walked closer, careful, like approaching a wounded animal. "You weren't at school." "You're following me now? Great. That's healthy." "I'm worried about you," I said quietly. She laughed bitterly. "You're worried? After all these years, you don't get to suddenly play the caring mom." "Clara." I reached out, but she pulled back. Something in her eyes made my stomach twist. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was fear, confusion, guilt. "Don't touch me," she whispered. "You have no idea what I've done." The words chilled me. "What do you mean?" Her lips trembled. She looked down at her shoes. "It doesn't matter. You'll hate me anyway." I swallowed hard. "I could never hate you." She met my eyes then, and for a moment, I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who used to draw hearts on my medical notes and wait up for me to come home. Then she turned away. "You will, once you find out." That night, she didn't come home until late. I heard her footsteps outside my room around midnight. I waited until she was asleep, then unlocked my desk drawer and reread the diary. I noticed something I hadn't before, a folded piece of paper tucked inside the back cover. It was a printed bank slip, a withdrawal form for $5,000, dated Friday. Her name wasn't on it, but the signature line was blank. She'd planned to forge it. I closed my eyes, exhaling shakily. This wasn't just teenage rebellion anymore. It was desperation. Something, or someone, was pushing her toward this. Friday morning, I made a plan. I called the bank, explained the situation quietly, and froze all external transfers. Then I left a note for Clara. Dinner tonight. No arguments. Please come home early. The day crawled by. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every passing thought felt like a warning bell. When I finally pulled into the driveway that evening, her room light was on. I stepped inside and found her sitting at the kitchen table, the diary open in front of her. She didn't look up. "You read it," she said simply. "Yes, I did." She closed the notebook with a snap. "Then you know everything." I pulled out a chair across from her. "I know you're angry. I know you feel like I wasn't there for you. And you're right. I wasn't." Her lip quivered, but she didn't speak. "But I don't understand," I continued softly. "Why the diary? Why the plan? Why steal from me?" She looked up then, tears brimming in her eyes. "Because you took everything from me first." My chest tightened. "Clara, no, you took Dad." Her voice cracked. "You chose your stupid job over him, over us. He left because of you. You were never home, never listening, and I was alone." Her words sliced through me like glass. I wanted to defend myself, to explain, but she wasn't wrong. I'd buried myself in work to survive the divorce. I thought I was providing, she thought I was abandoning. "I met Eli online," she continued, her voice trembling. "He said he understood me, said we could leave and start over. I didn't even care about the money. I just wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me." Her words hung in the air, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt grief. I remember sitting there, staring at her, my daughter, my only child, and realizing that every tear, every angry word, every slammed door was just the sound of her pain echoing back at me. I wanted to reach for her, but she kept her arms folded tightly, like she was protecting herself from something invisible. I spoke quietly, choosing each word like it might shatter between us. "Clara, I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing. After your father left, You worked. You always worked," she snapped. "You weren't there when I needed you. Not once." Her voice cracked on the last word. I could see the child in her, the little girl who used to wait by the window for me to come home. I took a deep breath. "You're right. I wasn't there enough. I thought keeping the house running, keeping the bills paid, that it would be enough to show you I loved you. But love without presence, it doesn't work, does it?" She blinked, startled by the softness in my tone. Don't act like this fixes anything." "I'm not," I said. "But it's the truth. You deserved more of me." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt heavy, thick with years of unspoken words. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "I wasn't really going to do it." I frowned. "Do what?" "The money, the running away. It was just talk. Eli said we'd never be free unless we cut ties. He made it sound like an adventure." Her voice trembled. "I thought if I scared you, maybe you'd notice me again." The confession hit me harder than the betrayal ever could. I leaned forward. "Clara, I noticed you every single day. even when you hated me. I just didn't know how to reach you without breaking what little we had left." Her chin quivered. She looked away, brushing at her tears angrily. "I didn't want you to see how much I hated myself." That sentence, the quiet despair in it, broke something inside me. I stood up slowly, circled the table, and knelt beside her chair. She stiffened, then let out a small, shaky breath as I wrapped my arms around her. "I'm here now. I can't change what I missed, but I can be here. I won't let you go through this alone." For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. She cried into my shoulder, soft and small, like she used to when nightmares woke her. We stayed like that for a long time. No words, just the sound of two broken hearts trying to beat together again. Later that night, when she finally fell asleep, I sat in the living room, staring at the dark window. I could see my reflection, the tired eyes, the streaks of gray hair I hadn't noticed before. There was no guidebook for this, no way to rewind time and redo motherhood. But I could start from where I was. The next morning, I made a call to Dr. Linton, a child psychologist I'd worked with at the hospital. I asked if she could see us both. "It's urgent," I told her, my voice unsteady. She agreed to meet us the next day. When I told Clara, she didn't argue. She just nodded, eyes red, voice small. "Okay." That evening, I sat with her on the porch. The sky was streaked pink and orange, the cicadas humming like they always had when she was little. "I used to love these sunsets," she said quietly. "Dad and I would sit out here while you were still at work." The words stung, but I let them. I'd earned that pain. "I remember," I said softly. "You used to leave drawings for me on the counter. You'd tape them to the fridge so I couldn't miss them." She smiled faintly. "You missed a few." "I missed too many," I admitted. "But I see them now." She looked at me then, eyes tired but less guarded. "Do you really think therapy will help?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But maybe talking to someone who isn't me will help us both understand what we've been carrying." After a long pause, she nodded. "Okay." It was a small word, but it felt like a door opening. Our first session was awkward. Dr. Linton had a soft voice, the kind that filled silences without pressing too hard. She asked simple questions, letting us answer, or not. At first, Clara did most of the talking. She told stories about feeling invisible, about the night her father left, and the way she'd overheard him shouting that I chose the job over the marriage. I wanted to interrupt, to defend myself, but I didn't. I listened. I needed to hear her truth, even if it wasn't mine. When Dr. Linton asked me what I felt in those moments, my throat tightened. I felt like if I stopped working, everything would fall apart. I thought strength meant not crying, not breaking, not letting anyone see me struggle. I didn't realize I was teaching my daughter to do the same. Clara's eyes softened. "I thought you just didn't care." "I cared too much. But caring isn't the same as being there." After the session, we sat in the car in silence for a long time. Then Clara said, "I'm sorry." It was quiet, almost swallowed by the hum of the air conditioner. I turned to her. "For what?" She said, "For writing those things, for scaring you. I was angry, but also lost. Eli made me feel like someone finally saw me. He said you never would." "And do you still believe that?" She shook her head. "No, not anymore." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Good." The weeks that followed weren't perfect. We argued, we cried, we sat through more therapy sessions that peeled away layers neither of us knew existed. But something was changing, slowly, steadily. She started sitting with me at dinner again. Sometimes we'd talk about her classes, sometimes about music, sometimes about nothing at all, but she was there. One night, she came into my room while I was reading. "Mom?" Yes? She hesitated, then smiled shyly. Can I sleep here tonight? It had been years since she'd asked. I nodded, patting the bed beside me. Of course. As she curled up under the blanket, I felt her hand slip into mine. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of guilt pressing on my chest. I felt peace, fragile, but real.
The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The house was still, soft light spilling through the curtains. For the first time in years, I didn't dread waking up. Clara was still asleep beside me, her breathing even, her hand loosely resting on mine. I studied her face. The faint traces of the little girl she used to be still lingered there, beneath the eyeliner and defiance. In that moment, I realized that healing didn't happen all at once. It arrived in small, quiet moments like this, fragile as morning light, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. A few weeks later, Dr. Linton suggested that Clara start individual sessions. She believed Clara needed space to unpack her feelings without worrying about me listening. I agreed. Those evenings, I'd wait in the car, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching the clinic doors until I saw her silhouette appear. Sometimes she'd walk out smiling, sometimes with tears streaked across her cheeks. But there was always something new in her eyes, an awareness, a willingness to try. One day, as she got in the car, she said, "Dr. Linton told me I should write again. Not like before. Not angry stuff. Just honest stuff." "That sounds good," I said carefully. She said I should write to you sometimes. Letters I don't have to send. I glanced at her, surprised. "Would you want to send them eventually?" She shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe. Depends on how brave I feel." I smiled back. "I'll be ready when you are." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was the road leading there. A month passed. Our house slowly filled with laughter again. Awkward, hesitant, but real. We started cooking dinner together on weekends. She'd chop vegetables while I read out recipes. Sometimes we'd burn things. Sometimes we'd argue about how much salt was too much. But those small domestic noises, the clinking of pans, the sound of her humming under her breath, they felt like medicine. One night, while washing dishes, she asked quietly, "Mom, do you still think about Dad?" I paused, water running over my hands. "Every day," I admitted. "Not because I want him back, but because he's part of the story that shaped us." She nodded. "I used to think if I blamed you, it would make missing him easier, but it didn't. It just made everything hurt more." I dried my hands and looked at her. Blame is heavy, Clara. It feels like control, but it's just another kind of cage. She smiled faintly. "Dr. Linton said something like that too." "She's a wise woman," I said softly. But the real turning point came one Saturday morning, 3 months later. I was cleaning out the drawer of my nightstand when I found it. The blue diary. The same one that had nearly broken me. For a moment, I just stared at it, unsure whether to open it again. Then I took it downstairs and set it on the kitchen table where Clara was reading. Her eyes widened when she saw it. She asked where I found it. I said quietly, "In my drawer. I kept it. I don't really know why." She swallowed, closing her book. "You can throw it away if you want. I don't want it anymore." I nodded, running my hand over the worn cover. "Maybe we should read it together, one last time. Then we can decide." Her face went pale. "Mom, I don't—" "It's okay," I said softly.
Not to blame, not to reopen old wounds, just to remind ourselves how far we've come. After a long hesitation, she nodded. We sat together at the table, turning the pages slowly. The words that had once felt like daggers now seemed distant, like echoes of two people who didn't exist anymore. At one point, Clara whispered, "I can't believe I wrote this." I looked at her. You were hurting. These words were just the way you screamed. She bit her lip. It still feels awful. Maybe that's a good thing, I said. It means you've changed. By the time we reached the last page, she was crying quietly. I closed the diary and placed it in her hands. Your turn, I said. She hesitated, then stood and threw it into the trash bin. It landed with a soft thud. The sound was strangely final. That night, I found a small envelope outside my bedroom door. My name was written in her handwriting. Inside was a letter. Mom, I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for the things I wrote, but I want to thank you for not giving up on me. I used to think you were the reason my life felt empty. Now I see that I was just afraid of losing you completely. I'm still learning how to love you without blaming you for the things I can't change. Thank you for staying. I love you. Clara. I read it 3 times, my vision blurring with tears. Then I placed it gently in the same drawer where the diary once lay. It felt poetic, replacing pain with grace in the same space. The next therapy session, I handed Dr. Linton the letter and told her how Clara had started volunteering at a local youth center. She says she wants to help other girls who feel invisible, I said proudly. Dr. Linton smiled. That's the healthiest form of redemption there is, turning pain into purpose. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. On the drive home, Clara rolled down the window, her hair whipping in the wind. She said it feels good to breathe again, she said with a grin. I smiled. It looks good on you. Later that night, as we sat on the porch again, she turned to me and asked, "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" I thought for a long moment. Sometimes. But if they had, maybe we wouldn't understand each other the way we do now. She nodded slowly. I think I'm finally starting to forgive myself. The crickets hummed around us, the night air cool and still. I reached over, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and said, "That's the first step towards forgiving me too." She smiled through tears. I already did, Mom. I just hadn't said it out loud. That night, as I turned off the porch light, I whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for second chances, for the courage to face what's broken, and for the simple, extraordinary grace of being called Mom again without resentment in the tone. It's been nearly a year since the day I found Clara's diary. Sometimes I'd still catch myself looking at her, really looking, and marveling at how much she's grown since then. The scars are still there, of course, but they've softened, faded into the kind that remind you what you survived, not what you lost. These days, our mornings are calmer. We eat breakfast together at the same kitchen table where we once hurled accusations and tears. Now, she makes coffee for both of us. She still adds too much sugar to hers, but I don't tease her anymore. Instead, I watch her laugh about something on her phone, her eyes bright in the morning light, and I silently thank the universe for giving me another chance to be her mother properly, present, patient, awake. Clara started college this fall. On move-in day, she was nervous, her hands trembling as she folded her clothes into neat piles. I feel like I'm starting over, she said. You are, I told her, but that's the gift of healing. You get to write new chapters. She smiled softly. No more revenge chapters, I promise. I laughed through the ache in my chest. Just make them honest ones." She nodded, and for a moment, I saw both the teenager she was and the woman she was becoming. Before I left her dorm, she hugged me tightly, longer than I expected. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. "I love you more," I said. And I meant it in a way I hadn't been able to before, without fear, without guilt, without hesitation. When I got back home, the silence of the house didn't sting like it used to. It was peaceful. Her old room was empty now, except for the things she'd chosen to leave behind. A few photos, a tattered teddy bear, and a small note taped to the mirror. "Don't forget to live for yourself, too." I stood there for a long time staring at that note. It was something I'd said to her in therapy months ago. I hadn't realized she'd listened. That night, I finally sat at my desk and opened my own journal, something I hadn't done in years. I began to write not about work or schedules or therapy, but about the simple beauty of surviving love, anger, forgiveness, about learning to stay when it would have been easier to run. A few weeks later, Clara called me after her first college midterms. "Guess what?" she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I joined a storytelling club. We're writing pieces about forgiveness." "That sounds perfect for you," I said. "Yeah," she laughed. "I might even share a story based on us. Don't worry, I'll change the names." I chuckled through the ache in my chest. "Just make them honest ones." She nodded, and for a moment I saw both the teenager she was and the woman she was becoming. A few nights later, I drove out to the old park where I used to take her as a child. The swings were empty, creaking slightly in the wind. I sat on our favorite bench, remembering how we'd once come here after her father left, how she'd asked me if families could break forever. I told her, they can, but they don't have to. Now, years later, I finally understood what I meant. Families don't stay whole because they avoid breaking. They stay whole because they learn how to rebuild. Sometimes people ask me how I managed to forgive her after everything. The lies, the plans, the betrayal written in her own hand. The truth is, forgiveness didn't happen in one moment. It came in waves, small ones. The first wave was realizing that her pain came from a place of love twisted by fear. The next was watching her choose to change, not for me, but for herself. And the last was letting go of the version of her I used to hold on to, the version that didn't exist anymore. A few months later, Clara came home for a weekend visit. She looked older somehow, sure of herself. She'd cut her hair shorter, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone learning how to be okay with imperfection. We cooked dinner together again, laughing when we burnt the garlic bread. It reminded me how cyclical life could be, how even burnt things could still taste like love. After dinner, she said, "I've been thinking about something." I looked up. "What's that?" "I want to start a blog for teens dealing with family stuff. Maybe share stories, lessons, not the perfect kind, but the real ones." I smiled. "That sounds beautiful." She nodded. "I think people need to know that making mistakes doesn't make them unworthy of love." "That's a powerful thing to share," I said quietly. She smiled back. "I always do now." Her tone carried a confidence I hadn't heard before, a steadiness that only comes after you've fallen apart and rebuilt yourself. Later that night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat alone on the porch again. The stars were out, silent witnesses to everything we had endured. I thought about that old diary, the one that had once symbolized betrayal, and I realized that without it, we might never have faced the truth. Sometimes pain is the teacher you never wanted, but the one that stays with you the longest. If I've learned anything from this journey, it's that love is not a guarantee. It's a choice we make over and over again, even when it hurts. Clara and I chose each other again, not because we forgot what happened, but because we remembered what mattered more. Now, every time she calls just to say goodnight, I hear something in her voice that I once feared I'd lost forever: trust. And in that simple sound, I find my own healing. Because the truth is, I didn't just save my daughter. She saved me too.